Well, so we told you, as always, the hashtag disband party militias now gaining prominence not only on the platforms you have, but also on our social media platforms, seem to be gaining the momentum, and also looks like it's hitting the right chords. But more so, not only what we are doing, but the consistent, vociferous way by which we've had the National Commission on Civic Education. And now we've had religious bodies, civil society organizations, and just yesterday we'll play back a press conference or a meeting that was convened by civil society generally to add that voice to the need, especially that has been mooted by the NDC to the President of the Republic, to include other sections of civil society, religious leaders, chiefs, etc., to the whole discussion about the need for the two main parties and the other parties within our political dispensation to disassociate themselves, one, from these party militias that they have within their ranks, and also disband them, and find plausible means by which we can do some reintegration of these young men into our society. And that's why we're continuing this conversation. We have Sheikh Aremeyaw, Shaibu. He's a former educationist, but currently also one of the leading clerics in the world of Islam. And we have him here. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity.
You may have been following the conversation. Yeah. Of course, we did the initial report, we broke the news. Subsequently, the concern we had as a media outfit also dovetailed into what the objectives of the setting up of the commission is, and subsequently the NDC also had formally written to the President. The President had come out with a formal reply, but it looks like now the general view is that the conversation needs to be broadened. Why do you think that is important?
It is important, for anyone who observes the temperature in the country. We can see that there's a heightened temperature and a feeling of trepidation, anxiety, fear, and threat to our democracy going forward into 2020. It is obvious to everybody. For the issue of the dangers of, if you like, now we call it party militia or vigilante, is out of the realm of imagination or perception. It's clear that it's a reality. That reality has been acknowledged by the two parties. It's clear, I mean, from the statements both have made, it's clear that they both accept that it is not an imagination or perception, but it's a reality. But I think that, and then the two parties also agree that dialogue in seeking to solve this problem is necessary. I think where they disagree has to do with matters of procedures. Who and who should engage in it. And I think that if both parties could put aside their partisan interest and the tendency to show partisan prowess and so on and so forth, and look squarely at the threat that confronts us, I think we should not be where we are, where I think it's not good for both parties to be throwing their correspondences to the media, and the sort of discussions that go following such correspondences further makes the political space very murky and make it appear as if dialogue is almost impossible. And I think that we need to be careful about that.
Now, in trying to do the linkages with the political parties, and if you also look at the content of the President's reply to the first letter of the NDC signed by the chairman, it's now the truth. We've realized it. The two main parties, the NDC and MP, they've dominated our political dispensation since 1993. But at the end of the day, there are various indicators, variables, institutions and sectors within the dispensation that hold the whole piece together. So now they all have to come in. In what way do they have to come in within the discussions that will make it credible and binding?
Right. Yeah. I think that if you take MPP, NDC aside, in between them is the broader society that will be caught up. That will be caught up in any time when there's conflict. What seeks to appear to me, in my view, is that the two parties are saying, damn what happens, the consequence. Those of us who will be caught in between they do not care. And if they cared, what would happen is that, just like we see them sometimes expressing their pleasantries, I have seen former president, the current president, sometimes looking face to face and smiling, some of them, and so on and so forth. That shows that when it comes to certain matters, they could. But from what is happening, it appears that it is not happening. So there's the need actually for civil society and other important institutions to come in as facilitators, using their expertise, position of influence, using their technical know-how, and so on and so forth, to say, look, we just want to bring the two of you together and then be in the middle and facilitate, like the Peace Council, for example, whose contributions no one can deny in facilitating peace and saving our democracy. And I think the Peace Council, the Christian Council, CSOs, whose standing in the country has been so much clear to everybody in terms of contributing to the deepening of our democracy, can be brought together. We may not have all the CSOs in the world in Ghana to come in, but at least there are certain very major ones whose presence has so much been acknowledged. Yeah, that is not to say that others are unimportant, but because of the space, we could bring them on board just to assist, bringing the two parties to reason together. Dialogue is the only means to be able to deal with this matter, which is confronting us, but there are other broader issues of broader national interests that probably the dialogue could also lead us into dealing with. And I think as a nation, I think that, let me quickly add that, let us not do what can lead us to slide back into violence, because I hold myself in pride that I belong to Kodio, and I have seen people coming from across the sub-region, far away from other countries, wanting to come to Ghana and learn what is the secret behind the peace of our country. They can't understand it. So it will be a very big disappointment that if our leaders in the country cannot see reason and maintain this position of pride, that we can bequeath to the younger generation a country that has been held together as a nation across the religious divide, across religious divide, across political divide. And I think that I want to call on them to see reason beyond partisan interest.
And before you retired, you had been greatly involved in civil society work and community education and education sector in general, and also Islamic education, and also involved in building relationships in your community, the Islamic communities. You get to find that many young people in Islamic communities or in the Zongos or even in poorly planned, they usually get attracted to some of these callings from the politicians. Would you by any chance know why we have this phenomenon?
I think one of the things that I have said, probably politicals may disagree with me, I think politicians from both parties have been very unfair to the Zongo community. Very unfair to us.
And that will be
and that is because, you see, for about more than 20 decades, maybe 2 decades, if you follow the trend in the Zongo, this is a community that has been denied opportunities for young people to realize their fullest potentials. Matters that are of long-term development nature, that needs to be given attention, was not given attention. But what they did was to politically deceive our people. In Ramadan, they bring food, live the long-term needs of the community and give us food. When it is time of Hajj, they give tickets to our people living long-term. They leave these young people who have the potential. Now, the characteristic of the Zongo boy is that, look, they are very loyal. They are very, very loyal. That I can tell you. They stand behind you, no way. Very courageous. They have the courage to want to say if they want to fight for something, they want to do it. They are adventurous. These are positive attributes. But when they are channeled through a wrong direction, they can become destructive. And that is why politicians have done to the people of the Zongo. And what is happening now is that it's becoming clear to us that we ourselves are hating ourselves. I'm speaking now as a Zongo person. I was born in the Zongo, raised in the Zongo, and grew to where I am. But probably because of my education, working with other elder people, reading here and then, observing matters of the world, probably my view and my understanding has been different. But I think that that's the way I see it. Muslim politicians who are in both parties can do something differently. When they come to us, they should not be the conduits through which politicians will misuse our young people. Those who do so are our own politicians who will come and create the opportunity for this. And I think that time has come that they should save us that. We should rather look at what will make our young people realize, one, the value of their lives. The value. If you watch this short, commission of inquiry, you can see clearly those who were either the victims of the violence or those who were part of the perpetration, for example, happen to be ours. And when they come, you can see in terms of the language and their know-how about a thing. You can see clearly. So others come, you find that they come as well-educated people in their suits and so on, even making contributions to also how we can disband it. Ours come, they are those who have come to answer questions as to whether they were victims or they were part of the violence. And
that is the narrative that you want changed.
And I want this thing to be changed.
Yeah.
I want it to be changed completely. So that next time, come 2020, I don't want to see any young Muslim being used as a tool for violence.
I think this also poses our discussion in a better perspective. I grew up in Ashaiman.
Good.
I live close by too, so it's easier. And I've had classmates and my friends were in the Zongo. I would visit the Zongo consistently. Every day I was there. And you get to find that the narrative would have to be generated and changed from the communities where we have those that are used for the perpetration of the violence. How do we use leaders within those communities or those sectional groups to change the narrative? So for example, if a politician then approaches a young person that come and join me and let's do this or be my boy, then you know that you also have a certain position of intent to say maybe it's on these terms. If you're going to educate me, then how do we do
that sort of thing? I think this has been put squarely, succinctly by the Vice President in his recent presentation at Kumasi, where he called on the Zongo youth. He was using terms like joblantes instead of political vigilantes. In other words, when you come, he said, ask the politicians who come to board you into that kind of destructive activity, that can they bring their own children? And I hold a similar view, that if somebody, a politician, comes and incites you into violence, tell him to bring his own child who has been well educated, gone to the most expensive school, gone to the outside the country to become somebody worthy of occupying a respectable position in our country, that he will not be able to come to the front, but he comes to, because he disrespects the value of your life. In fact, it's a whole complete disregard and disrespect for the value of the young person. And that's what I find is also a dent in the conscience of the political elite who actually incite young people into violence. It's a dent on their conscience. Yeah. Instead of building the potential of such a young person who in future, in the next 50 years, becomes the president, now you use him to become a tool for destruction. And I think that is one of the most unfortunate things that is happening. I think that the leadership within the Zongo community need to look at it again. For example, I'm directly now talking to the Zongo chiefs. We have chiefs who are at the Zongo chiefs. They are our leaders. So I throw a challenge to them. How do they now engage with the young people to assist us? The imams can also be looked at. I also have a view that we can look at our Makaranta system, which is one of the institutions for upbringing and promoting discipline, to look at how we are teaching, so the product of such a system can also come up and know that they are good citizens who can make contributions.
So the question I asked was, I don't know whether you've answered it succinctly.
Right.
It's about how we do the linkage or perhaps collaborate or draw them into the conversation of the dialogue.
Right.
Because I'm thinking, we go do all the dialogue, civil society, everybody, but where they get the raw materials from, the community leaders then are not conscientized or are not part or participatory as it should be within the process of the dialogue.
No, I think we need to draw them in. For example, even this dialogue that we are trying to initiate, I think that we need to draw. For example, we have the Council of Muslim Chiefs, for example. We can draw the president or the PRO to come. But at least we also look at some of the youth leaders within the Muslim community or the Zongo community, those that have gained prominence, for example, and we can see in them a certain sense, or those who have even been part of the victims, to come and share their experiences. I watched on your network somebody who came, his face completely bandaged, and he was asked questions, and he was asked to say his experience. And what he said, for me, became a subject for a sermon in my mosque. I took it up, that when he was there, no big man came to see how he was faring. He mentioned, and then the host said, so what do you want to say? Can you say it again now? Look into this and tell what do you want to say? So there was a certain message that came. So because of that, we need some of the victims of this coming from the Zongo to come there and give their experiences. And then going forward, what do they also think? I think their input will help us in the dialogue.
And in order not for us to isolate the larger society of young people, because if you look at what the statistics are, and the trend of the population growth, we seem to have a very youthful population. Even if they are educated, they don't onwardly also go and have that mindset and go draw from such communities, either in the immediate future or the current state. How should we also bring them, those in the universities or those in public schools, or young people either in the corporate world who intend to be politicians?
Yeah, I think it's important that our survey, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, there's something they call the youth bulge. I mean, so it's becoming an issue, and where most of them do not find something productive to do in their lives, they are most likely to engage. And then those who are in the universities seem to appear to have no hope of having something to do even when they come out from the universities. And so most of them will also want to engage in politics, and they see politics as the shortest way to be able to make something good for themselves. And I think all these, because see, when they come from the university, they are also a source of inspiration in their communities. Yeah. So therefore, those who have been successful, I think we need to do something to showcase some of those, especially those in the deprived communities. You are a good example. I mean, having to live around Ashama, and I met with a certain very respectable person, and he told me, Sheikh, if I told you I was born and I was brought up at Abobloshi, will you agree? If I somebody who's very productive in his life, he told me, Sheikh, if I told you I was born and I was raised up at Abobloshi, will you agree? I said, wow, at Abobloshi, and this is where you have reached. And look, if you come to Nima, there are very great people who have lived in Nima and have made it. We need to showcase such people so that we see the full potential of such people and how we can assist them to rather make them more productive elements of society and the country, rather than piling them up and waiting for the need to arise for them to engage in violence. And we go there and rent them, and now they have become a threat to us, in-party threat and out-of-party threat. I'm saying in-party threat and out-of-party threat. We have seen how these people have chased ministers who have gone to organize meetings. It's clear. The recent Kumasi incident is clear. It's clear.
Before then, we had a tougher one.
There
was a member of parliament who was a minister.
A minister who was chased. I mean, I just didn't want to mention his name.
So we have pointers. Both sides seem to be feeling the heat of their own actions.
I bet you. And you and I, as we walk here, if you speak the truth now, and one vigilante group, and it's not happy with you, how safe are you? You have been driving alone all the time. I have been driving alone. If I speak my mind now about what I think as a citizen of this country, that which will help deepen our democracy or promote the peace of our country, and somebody is not happy with me, I'm driving alone, I have children, and somebody decides that he likes my route to the house, and he shoots me and kills me. I mean, how safe are we all? How safe are we?
It's a great question.
There is a danger that we must all address.
I have really loved this last submission of yours, but that is tempting me to ask the last question, because we have to then wrap up with what do we do? You know, if it's a war-torn situation or a conflict-ridden situation, they'll have the DDR process, and then the last will be the reintegration.
Right.
Look, we have young people, they are given stipends, so they use that to eat proteins, and they use it to lift metals, they use it to buy guns, and they use it to do the biddings of their political actors or masters. how do we want them to fend for themselves or reintegrate into society if we know that we're going to have this dialogue of never return to what they used to do?
What they used to do. And I think that this is matter for government, the matter for communities to explore avenues for positive engagement with the youth, i.e., how do we get them something doing? Some of them who already have certain skills, but they are not making it so much. How do we come in and open the opportunities for them? I think there are some of them too who just did not have the opportunity for financial difficulties to continue their education. We can look at that. I think we should also begin to engage in a certain form of counseling. I mean, youth counseling. We need to have certain youth counseling centers in communities where we have created relatively confidence.
Want to counsel 28-year-old macho men?
I mean, seriously, there are some of them who do not know why. Look, because I have spoken directly to some of these vigilante people, directly face to face, and I have drawn their attention to what it means for them to be reduced from their humanity, from the level of their humanity to tools for violence. You know, it's an affront that somebody reduces you, he looks after a human being, but now he doesn't see you as a human being again. I told to them in their face that, look, you know what it means that a politician uses you? That you are a human being, but that you cease to be a human being in his face. So he brings you down. And then now your status now, you are a tool, an instrument for violence. It's an insult to your person. And if we can get our youth to understand this, and so this one has to do with working on the mind, the mindset, that what God has created you for is loftier and better than what you are being used for.
Well, we're happy that you've passed through. I have a friend, and of course he lives in close to Shaibu, doesn't live there, but used to live there. And through some of these things, I can say he's a vigilante because he used to do land guard activities and a number of things, has been locked up at police stations, and over time he became recalcitrant and hardened. His macho, smokes and does all, but now he's reformed.
Good.
But the thing is, there's always the urge and the temptation. There's a certain fixation. There's always a thin line between when you have to tread and go to the other side and all that. That's why I asked the question of how we do the integration.
Yes, I think it's important.
Because he asked me a question the last time. What he used to do, he used to get lots of money compared to what he's doing now.
No, yeah. So no. I think we need to counsel them to be patient with life also. That patient.
So that's where the counseling
once you
comes
get, that's where the counseling comes in. He can succeed. With patience, he moves slowly in life. The opportunities will hit at him at one spot, and his life will radically change, and he will have a story to tell.
Mashallah, shukran. Thank you very much. And we've had in the studio Sheikh Aremeyaw Shaibu, a former educationist, but also a member of Kodeo, and greatly involved in his community and improving the livelihood of young people, not only in the Zongos, but also many of the deprived communities we have in our capital, Accra. And we've enjoyed the conversation. It's all part of trying to drum home what we need to do as we continue to pledge our support, especially with the hashtag disband party militias now. And we know that it's gotten a lot of prominence not only on our social media handles but also on the various platforms that you have. Please make sure that you keep sharing that hashtag. Please believe in the hashtag disband party militias now, because perhaps it's what's going to take us to the promised land. We want to have a political dispensation that is free of any of the calamitous endings reminiscent of our various neighbors we have in West Africa who have been involved in conflict. And violence is not something that we have to be involved in. Thank you very much, Sheikh.